Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Milwaukee, here I come from Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, the whole world is going to be going to Milwaukee at the end of the week for the GOP convention to see what the heck is happening. And at 5:07, 5:08, we got Ryan Priebus, who is the host for Milwaukee for the convention, for the GOP convention. And we'll get an update of what's going on with the GOP convention and a few other things, I guess.
And by the way, we got an action-packed show, John. We have Reince Priebus, as you mentioned. We're going to have Governor David Paterson talking about all the infighting going on, of course, and all the incoming at President Joe Biden. Will he stay? Will he go? Dr. Mark Siegel.
Wait. That's the $64 trillion question.
Yeah.
See what inflation does?
Is that Bidenomics?
It's not $64 billion. It's not $64 million. It's $64 trillion question.
That's because of Bidenomics, I think. That's why. Also, Steve Cates has some interesting stuff. Charlie Gasparino. And we're going to end with Bill O'Reilly. Big question, as you just brought up, John, too. Where is this week headed? I mean, here we had President Joe Biden, guys, literally calls into MSNBC today, Morning Joe, and says, I'm not going anywhere. Defiant. And he also is kind of trying to be Scranton Joe, Ed Cox.
Normally you're so defiant before you leave, but I don't think he's going to. There's no way they can force him out, and he's going nowhere. I think the true test, you guys, is he claims he is going to be doing a solo news conference. That's what the White House is saying after the NATO conference, which ends on Thursday. So they're saying probably Thursday, Friday. But who knows? Maybe they'll feed the questions because that happened over the weekend, as we learned.
What happened in that? Did she walk off the job, that reporter?
Well, it sounds like it was a combination because what happened was, John, there were 2 interviews that he did last week with African-American radio hosts, and they came out and said, we were fed the questions from the White House, and the female reporter on WURD radio came out and said, they gave me the 4 questions, I approved them, and obviously her bosses didn't really like that. That's terrible. To me, that is absolutely horrible, and it's absolutely shameful. Your thoughts? I mean, as a journalist, if somebody said, here are the 4 questions you're going to ask, I'd say, here are the 4 exits you're going to go.
Didn't we have that issue, Rita, with Donna Brazile?
Yes, that's right.
Remember
giving
that?
to Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
Remember during the debate.
I mean, was that fair?
Yeah, absolutely
really
not. And that's not journalism ethics. So it sounds like, John, she had a little bit of a falling out, with her bosses over the weekend who maybe didn't know the questions were fed. It sounds like. So how are you going to do a news conference?
The question, Rita, is she gone because she did it? Or is she gone because she announced that she did it?
Good question. Good. By the way, I wonder too, Judge. And also, how are you going to do a news conference later on this week? That's the other question. He claims it's a solo news conference. Are they going to feed the questions?
But we know at the press conference, and they fed questions.
I pray for the President of the United States.
I do too, John.
Because, look, the whole world is laughing. Doesn't mean we should laugh too.
By the way, and John, I agree because I want our president, no matter who it is, Republican or Democrat, you want him to be successful. You want him to be great. But here's a week where we have 30 world leaders in, and they got to be shaking their heads too, Ed Cox.
And he's going to be our president till mid-January. That's it.
Unless he says
a lot can happen in that time.
A lot can happen this weekend. A lot can happen this week.
Well, you don't really think that they're going to make a move to remove him under the 25th Amendment, do you, Ed?
The vice president would have to be in the middle of that. I don't think she's going to do it.
Yeah, I don't think so. They are having a big meeting tomorrow with the Democrats. They had some over the weekend. And now, even within the Democratic Party, guys, there are 9 Democrats sort of on record, if you will, in a sense. Let's see if the choir, if the chorus intensifies.
That's 9 out of what?
How many?
213.
Yeah,
or
but the
something.
question is, what are they saying privately amongst themselves as opposed to what they're saying publicly?
Yeah, and that's the issue, because some of the ones that were quoted privately are now saying, but then on the Senate side, we're seeing Mark Warner is gathering the forces to see.
But he's pulling back. He's not going
it's that
forward
kind
with
of-
this letter that he was going
he's
to
not?
do.
He's not?
No.
Yeah. There's a stance
that's
as
the
bring
latest.
it up. Now, what about on the VP side, you guys? Because there's some new news that they have narrowed the list. There's one report that says it's going to be a choice between either J.D. Vance, governor, senator of Ohio, Governor Burgum, or also Senator Marco Rubio. Then there's another one that says it's between Burgum and J.D. Vance, and that one report says he's going to announce it this week. The next one says next week.
Listen, if I was running for president,
and I wish you were, John. I wish you were.
I wasn't born here.
I know. I wish you were.
The one that I think would get me the most extra votes is probably Nikki Haley. And I don't hate her. I don't like her. I just,
because she brings in some of the sort of independents, undecideds.
And after that, I think Marco Rubio, a lot of Hispanic votes. After that, Governor Youngkin, Governor Burgum. I mean, there's only one person to make the decision.
Yeah.
It's Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think if I were him, guys, I would wait wherever he's going to announce, let the Democrats implode, because they're imploding, this week with the infighting. Don't change the story. What do you think, Ed? I mean, I think you wait till the Republican National Convention, as we're talking about.
I would, look, there's no way they can force President Biden out. No way. They can't do it. And he's going to stay in. And at some point, they're going to have to accept it and retreat from what they're saying. Warner's already retreating.
All right.
Yeah.
They understand.
Ryan's people is going to come on afterwards. I think, do we have David Patterson on?
Yep, we have Governor
David Patterson on, and so many complicated things happening in the Democratic Party. Governor Patterson, what the heck is going on, and what is the Democratic Party saying?
Well, I think that some major voices in the Democratic Party are asking for President Biden to reconsider his decision. Now, there are times when, people tell you they don't think you should run or something like that, and they're doing it for their own motives. But I think that these Democrats are really thinking about the party. And, of course, in the end, we're thinking about the country. And the performance was just so bad that even his attempts to clean it up. Now, he was on one of the morning shows. I believe it was Morning Joe.
Yeah, it was Morning Joe.
And they said the same thing to him, and he said, I don't care what they think. Now, it's bad enough that you put all these people in the situation you put them in. Then you're going to say, when they react to it, you don't care about it. And what that tells me is that this situation is now getting to him. In other words, he doesn't really know what to do. He says he's going to be fine. He's going to move on. And so I think that the other members of the party are just going to have to figure out whether or not they coalition and publicly ask him to step down, or if
Governor,
what is election with him still there. And I don't see how that's possible.
What does the Rules Committee say? If he says, I'm running, can anybody really stop him?
Well, you still have to vote for him at the convention. They could stop him that way.
Well, aren't those votes committed to him?
It depends on David. It's Richard Weinberg.
Another Democrat in the studio with
exactly.
Judge Richard Weinberg.
The last two are common sense Democrats remaining. So, David, it depends on the state. You know that's state law. Some are committed as a matter of law, and others have a moral right to opt out. But I think overwhelmingly they're legally committed to President Biden. What do you say?
Well, they're legally committed in that, they can't change their vote to another candidate or something like that. But this is unique. This is something that hasn't happened before. This would be a motion to set that aside. And what can he do? Go to court? I just don't see. Maybe the problem for me is I don't see us Democrats able to win in November with Biden still at the head of the ticket.
Wow. By the way, on that interview this morning, Governor Patterson, I saw the president said, yeah, take me to the convention. He's like, he's saying, and he's also trying to run sort of this outsider, like the media's coming after me. The Democratic elites are coming after me. You, the people, are standing by me. I was elected. And if you have a problem, let's have it out at the convention.
My opinion, Jill Biden is not moving. She wants to be first lady.
I agree,
and
John.
She, even though I'm not sure she likes Hunter Biden, but she recruited him to move into the White House to stand by his father and say, "Dad, don't give up the ship."
Yeah, I think both of them. I agree, and there are reports that both of them are like hanging out like every turn. In fact, Jill Biden today, you guys, she's on the stump everywhere, saying, "We're in it, we're staying, we're this, we're that." Governor, where's this going to go?
Well, I don't think just because she's his wife that she's running the show and telling him what to say and telling him what to do. What I think is that she is trying to support him in the best way she can, and if he wants to stay in, and if it was my spouse and she wanted to stay in and I wanted her to get out, I wouldn't say a word to her because I might get beat up.
Good point.
Governor Patterson, anything else you want to say, Governor?
Just that I miss you guys and hope you all had a wonderful July 4th weekend.
Oh, we hope to see you soon.
And by the way, we've talked to Peter King. I talked to him and his wife, Rosemary, and they're feeling very good about her surgery and how things went with her.
Thank God for that. That's good news.
Yeah.
Okay, Governor, thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you again soon, probably Thursday.
And what did you think, Ed?
Oh, I was thinking the question for the governor is he thinks that President Biden, you can't win with him at the top of the ticket. Can you win with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket? What does this say?
I think she's worse. I think Kamala Harris is a worse candidate than Biden. I think Biden is stronger than Harris.
He has had years of experience, and despite his problems, I think he can basically understand what's going on.
I mean, can you imagine a debate between Trump and Harris? She's only capable of doing word salad.
Yeah.
And she has no record to run on. She has no accomplishments.
Yep. But she is going to inherit all. She's the border czar. She's directly responsible for whatever's happened at the border, and that's one of the biggest issues that the electorate's going to want to vote on.
Well, and they're also going to say, wait a minute, you were supposedly having the lunch once a week with the President of the United States, because everyone's now coming out and saying, didn't you see what we've all seen?
When did you know it? When did you know it?
Exactly, guys, exactly. I mean, you can already see the media is already saying, wait a minute, how could you say he was so great? Remember, after the debate, she's the one who went out and said, he had a slow start, but boy, what a strong finish. Is there anybody who's going to take what she says seriously now? I mean, honestly.
She gets the Susan Rice Award for going out there and making the remarks. Just an apologist.
Absolutely. Well, joining us now, we're waiting for Reince Priebus, but we have with us now Dr. Mark Siegel. Dr. Siegel, we got to get to the other medical issues with you, because Corinne Jean-Pierre, during the press briefing today, was hammered about these reports in the White House visitor logs that a Parkinson's expert apparently came in 10 times in the last year. She wouldn't confirm if it had anything to do with President Biden. She would only say, well, there were neurological exams during his physical. She was hammered. And she said finally was like screaming back. Your reaction as to the forthcoming or not forthcoming nature of the White House and on his medical condition that we all see, Dr. Siegel.
Well, let me give you some overview. I'll take it back from what you just said to 10,000 feet. I think that there's an issue. We need to be really angry at the White House and at the First Lady for the way they're managing this situation. In terms of the president himself, I don't know him. I didn't examine him, but he's looking like someone that's in denial. And if he's in denial, and he is, in fact, cognitively impaired to the extent that we think he is, dementia, then we actually have to feel bad for him and feel compassion for him and feel angry at the White House because they're trying to keep us from knowing it, lack of transparency. That's what bothers me a lot. In terms of the actual medical part of this, let's keep in mind something, which is that Kevin O'Connor wrote in physicals twice now that this was not Parkinson's. He wrote that in what is essentially the medical record. And, if Judge Weinberg is there, I'm sure his ears are perking up because you're not
Explain who that guy is. Explain who he is.
Who, Judge Weinberg?
No, him too. Depending on the day.
Kevin O'Connor is the president's physician. He's a White House physician.
Exactly.
And he puts out letters that are official about the yearly physical. And I checked just to make sure because I knew I was coming on here, and that's part of the medical record. The judge will tell you that's part of the medical record. And you're not supposed to lie in the medical record. So if he says he doesn't have Parkinson's twice, last year and this year, he better not have Parkinson's. Now, a Parkinson's expert comes to see him, and that's a pretty narrow specialty. But I think that his presentation is more consistent with something else, which is the long-term impact of those aneurysms he had repaired or the irregular heartbeat that he has, atrial fibrillation. Those could lead to not enough blood flow to parts of the brain that can cause what's called vascular dementia. That goes a lot more with the way he's walking, the way he's acting, this confabulation, the spatial problems, they can't finish a sentence. I mean, it looks to me more like that than Parkinson's. By the way, one other thing is Parkinson's wouldn't require 20 visits. If a Parkinson's expert comes, and he doesn't have a tremor, they would examine his upper extremities to see if he has something we call cogwheel rigidity. Does his arms get very rigid when you try to move them? And he would know that right away. And again, I mean, I don't think it's Parkinson's, but if it is, how dare anybody lie in the medical record, right, Judge?
Yeah, that's a question. Correct, by the way, they're looking into that. And in fact, the reason I wanted to ask about the Kevin O'Connor, the doctor, is because the Republicans, there is some James Comer and others are trying to get some details about him because they're claiming there was some business background.
No, that's even more troubling to me that they're supposed to be seeing this person as a medical physician. Why is he engaged in financial or business transactions with his patient? I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, we doctors think of these things the same way you judges do. There's got to be a complete separation there. One other thing about that is the lack of an MRI. I've been saying this over and over and over for 3 or 4 years now. These physicals are written up in really strange ways from a physician's eyes. Judge, like when you look at a transcript of a trial or something, you know right away if it's fishy. And I don't like a medical letter that doesn't include the word MRI. Oh, the neurologist saw him. Oh, the neurologist examined him. Oh, a complete neurological workup, but no mention of cognitive testing and no mention of imaging. If a neurologist is called to see someone that's having symptoms, even a headache, the first thing they do is an MRI.
Right. Isn't that's absolutely essential. It's one of the primary things you have to do, doctor. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Anybody that has symptoms that sound like they're neurologic or on exam. Now, they keep saying his exam is normal except for that gait that's due to supposedly a broken leg. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but, my wife is a neurologist, and she's been watching that. We don't like to make diagnoses over video, but it certainly looks like there's something wrong with his gait, and it doesn't look like a Parkinsonian type
doctor,
of
you just raised an interesting issue. There's been a big fight about releasing the audio of the interview of the president by the special counsel, her. And the White House has been fighting that. Garland, the attorney general, has been fighting that, claiming a ridiculous argument. This is executive privilege, and it's not. So the answer is, what are they hiding, and how long have they been hiding it?
I think they've been hiding it for years, but I don't understand what the purpose is. I mean, I don't know. Listen, we understood this with Woodrow Wilson, right? Woodrow Wilson goes to France, and he screws up the Paris Peace Conference because he had Spanish flu and he developed hallucinations. He comes back, he has a stroke. His wife is running the presidency. He's whispering instructions to her. It sounds like a bad movie. One of the greatest presidents of our history is reduced to that. But that was in 1919. Haven't we learned anything in terms of transparency?
No,
they did the same thing with
anything.
Roosevelt. Didn't they?
No, we haven't learned anything. It looks like, to me, what it looks like is Joe Biden has decided that she doesn't want to leave as first lady, and she's enlisted Hunter Biden to help in that endeavor.
Yeah, there's so many questions, guys. Well,
and the only way they can get him out is if the Vice President of the United States declares
she has to go around
25th.
25th Amendment. She has to chase up the cabinet.
And she has to have
the majority
of the cabinet agree with her, and I don't think they're going to get that done.
Yeah, and also then it's a concession that they're aware of his situation.
Exactly.
Well,
by the way, you know, and I know I'm stepping outside my lane here. For Kamala, I don't think it matters because if he were to run and win, which actually seems impossible at this point, by the way, she's going to become the president anyway. How long is he going to last?
That's exactly right. If you're voting for Biden, you're voting for Harris for president.
So she's not going to double cross it because it'll backfire on her. Thank you, Dr. Siegel, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Great to be on with you guys.
Thank you. Let's take a break right now.
Yep. And then after the break, we are going to be talking, speaking of which, of Kamala Harris, talking about her being the first diversity, equity, inclusion president. Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business after the break.
This is Greg Kelly for Priority Gold. What does it mean to be America's precious metals dealer? It means that you're in touch with the hearts and minds of those who love this country, value our freedom, and want to protect the future. Priority Gold is that precious metals dealer. They've helped thousands of Americans back their retirement with solid gold and silver. Call Priority Gold at 888-506-6439. Receive free shipping, free storage, a free investment guide, and one of the best purchase experiences in the industry. Call now or go to PriorityGold.com.
Hi, it's Lou Dobbs for Priority Gold, America's precious metals dealer. These are volatile times with high inflation, soaring debt, wars on multiple continents, and rising financial stress. Central banks are buying gold to diversify their reserves, so are many Americans. Call Priority Gold and find out how precious metals can help you diversify your portfolio. They're highly rated and happy to help. Call 1-866-303-6357 or get a free gold guide at PriorityGoldGuide.com. That's PriorityGoldGuide.com.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. Well, we were just talking about Kamala Harris. Where does she figure into all of this? Joining us now is the great Fox Business correspondent, the guru over there, Charlie Gasparino. Charlie, you wrote a really powerful column saying America may soon be subjected to the country's first DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion president. Explain.
Well, I mean, let's rewind the videotape to 2020. Joe Biden is running in the primaries. He's at this point debating Bernie Sanders, and he knocked everybody out, including Kamala Harris. And by the way, they didn't end on the greatest note, he and Kamala. Do you remember how she basically called him a racist for supporting for being against federally mandated busing back in the 70s? It was one of her key moments in during the campaign. It rocketed her for a time. People were talking about her possibly being the next president, but then she just fizzled out. She got like 2% of the vote. She just never made the sale. So he's against Bernie Sanders, and he basically promises at this point that he's definitely going to pick a woman to be his running mate. Doesn't matter how many qualified guys out there, it's going to be a woman. Fast forward to after George Floyd, and when the country was roiling in DEI mandates left and right, he basically makes the decision that he's only going to pick a black woman, and that's how Kamala Harris became vice president and possibly the president of the United States. If he has to step down, or if he wins and he doesn't last for his 4 years, and she's going to be your next president. The question is she qualified? And I think, just saying that she's a DEI candidate is not enough. You have to show that whether she's a DEI candidate who's unqualified. On paper, she checks a lot of boxes. Yes, checks the race box, Jamaican father, Indian mother, U.S. senator, former prosecutor. But if you delve into her record, and this is why she's never made the case nationally really very well, is that she's kind of a lightweight politician. No one could figure out what she actually has ever accomplished. How she got to be a political player in California is very interesting. You can Google Kamala Harris and Willie Brown, the former mayor of San Francisco, and in the state, you'll see what I'm talking about. She hasn't been a very good vice president at all. I mean, she was the border czar. Okay, the one, of all the major catastrophes of the Biden administration, and we don't have to go through each one of them, the border is at the top, and she was in charge of that. She's annoying. She has a horrible laugh. It wouldn't be so bad if she was a nice person, but apparently no one likes working with her. She lost her staff.
Yeah, she's lost a lot of her staff too. Ed Cox.
Yeah, if a Republican presidential candidate picked a vice president candidate who was so unqualified, what do you think the press would have done?
Oh, yeah. Well, look what they did to Dan Quayle. I mean, just go back. It's not that – I'm dating myself here. But
and actually, he was a good vice president, just didn't look like one. That's all.
Yeah, and he didn't have stature, and he misspelled potato. Remember that one time? We went to a class, and he misspelled the word potato, and they made a big thing out of it. He was actually a very good debater. He was a smart guy in policy, but they just destroyed the guy while he was in office. And so, think about that compared to the kid gloves treatment that Kamala Harris is getting from most of the media, not me. She's a lousy vice president. She wasn't a very good U.S. senator.
And Charlie, and now the politicians in Washington, the Democratic side, are looking at the alternatives to Biden, and they look at her and they say, "Wait a second, this may not work."
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to get him out. How they're going to bypass her if he gets out. I mean, it's just this is the party of DEI. To say that an African American woman vice president, or she's half black vice president, cannot shouldn't be the standard bearer after serving as vice president is even though she was horrible at her job, is going to be a heavy lift. So I think we might be stuck with her.
Okay. Charlie Gasparino, thank you. And I get your text every Sunday morning at 8:00 and keeps me up.
Thank you. I appreciate it, John. Thanks for your
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Charlie.
Rita, let's go to the hot news of the day from
it's the top news
Goya
of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And some big hot news, as we were talking about, John, at the top of Cats and Cosby. A new report says an expert on Parkinson's disease visited the White House 10 times over a 1-year period. The report comes as Biden faces questions over his age, mental fitness, and ability to serve another 4 years as president if he were to be reelected. At least 2 people are dead and millions left without power as Tropical Storm Beryl slams Texas. Beryl was about 55 miles northwest of Houston with top winds of 60 miles per hour as it moves further inland. Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial is set to begin. He is in Santa Fe Courthouse today for a pretrial hearing, and jury selection will start tomorrow. And everybody, those are the hot Goya headlines of the day.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we finally got through to Milwaukee, and with us today is the host of the Milwaukee convention for the GOP, is Ryan Priebus. Ryan, you were late. We were supposed to have you on at 5:05.
Well, I was talking to President Trump at the time and texting Matt, but I didn't realize I was texting a landline telling you guys it was going to be late. But we're talking about the convention and what's going on here in Wisconsin, and I'll tell you what, I think things are looking great here. We've got the RNC that's here right now. They're working through the platform. They're working through the rules. And a lot of people might not realize, especially the people listening, that may not follow every little detail here. But when you have a convention, both political parties actually meet a week before the convention and do a lot of the committee work that takes place to put on a convention. And so you've got the entire RNC here in Milwaukee getting ready, and the weather is beautiful, probably about 20 degrees cooler than what it is in New York and D.C., and those folks will be coming in too soon. So we're looking forward to it.
Rhines, how many people will be converging on Milwaukee?
I would say around 50,000 people, 15,000 as well in press, just both national press, local press, international press.
You have enough hotel rooms for 50,000 people?
Well, we don't have enough in the city of Milwaukee, but we've got enough in Milwaukee and in the areas around Milwaukee to make it work. We've got a dedicated bus lane on all the highways, of course, security. There's what's called a soft perimeter where you get people in and out, and then there's a hard perimeter where it's just you can't penetrate it at all. That's around the arena and where delegates and alternates show up. So this is a 2-year process, John, that fortunately I've done this a couple times before. So
you've been working hard at it.
Yeah, and the RNC's done a great job, and the Trump campaign's done a great job. The city of Milwaukee, it really is a pretty good example of Republicans and Democrats working together because, the city of Milwaukee is pretty much, I would say, run by Democrats, and the counties, it's fair to say, is run by Democrats, but yet they have been very cooperative in making sure that this group of Republicans and press are going to be well taken care of because you know what it means? It's about $200 million in economic impact to the city of Milwaukee, and that's something that most mayors would want to have.
Ryan, there's a lot of controversy. Wisconsin is a big swing state, and I understand there was a controversy on ballot boxes.
The Supreme Court came out with a ruling that reinstated ballot boxes being allowed in Wisconsin. It's a controversy because...
Is this breaking news? By the way, Ryan, there's some breaking news just happened right now. Wisconsin Supreme Court, new liberal majority reverses the ruling that banned most ballot drop boxes in swing state. Oh, this is just...
Yeah, this is what happened in the last few days.
No,
yes, exactly. Week. Yep.
Okay. So
right.
What does that mean?
So here's what it means. The state law says pretty clearly that when someone takes out an absentee ballot, that in Wisconsin you need to have an application for an absentee ballot, you need to sign the envelope, and you need to return it to a municipal clerk or someone who's deputized by a municipal clerk. It's very clear in the statute that that's the law. And that was part of the controversy that took place in 2020, because in 2020, during COVID, the Elections Board loosened up the laws. They didn't change the law. They just said, it doesn't matter what the statute says, do it this way, which was not in line with the law. And they had hundreds of thousands of people that voted in parks, and they put ballots in drop boxes. So they didn't sign it. They didn't give it to a deputized clerk. And in many cases, they put it in a drop box. And that is the issue. So what is it doing in this box? So the Supreme Court, after 2020 and all that fighting was kind of concluded, the Supreme Court came back and said, those drop boxes are illegal. And you can't do drop boxes and follow the law in Wisconsin. Well, the conservatives lost the Supreme Court race a year and a half ago. That case was brought back to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court now just issued the opposite ruling in Wisconsin and said, okay, we can have these drop boxes now. Well, you can imagine that this is a huge controversy because you have a state law that says one thing, and you've got the Supreme Court that's saying, well, we see what the law says, but we're going to allow these drop boxes. So now where does it go? Where this goes is each county now has to assess if and how they're going to use these drop boxes. Without them being in front of the clerk, I don't know how they're going to do it. So this is not over yet, guys. This is an ongoing dispute, and we'll see where it goes. But it certainly is controversial.
And Ryan, Judge Weinberg has a question.
Ryan, it's good to talk to you again. It seems to me this is reminiscent of what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did 4 years ago. And I submit to you, as a matter of constitutional law, the state Supreme Court of Wisconsin has no right to do this because it's a violation of the state. The state doing this by the state Supreme Court is a violation of the responsibility of the state legislature to set the rules.
What's the next step?
You go to federal court and you try to get an injunction against this.
Yeah, I mean, they could do that. You go back to the legislature and try to pass some kind of clarification in the law and then have them try to go back to the court. I mean, there are all kinds of ideas swirling around, Judge, right now. But it is very clear because if you read the statute and what the statute says, there's just no doubt about it what the law says, and it's pretty clear. And it's a shame what's going on.
Please keep us informed. I know my daughter is coming to Milwaukee for the Rules Committee on Wednesday, and I guess you guys are going to be loaded with people. I hope to catch up with you sometime.
It's going to be great. We're looking forward to it, and it's a big win for the city of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin.
And Ryan, I'll see you. I'll be there. I can't wait to see you there.
God bless.
I'll see you soon, guys. Okay. I'll save you some Miller Lights and cheese curds.
I'll take the cheese curds. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Sky, otherwise his real name, Steve Cates, and it's 117 degrees where he's at, and it's not as hot as the sun. Now, there's some strange stuff happening to the planet Earth. And Steve Cates is with us every Sunday, talks about strange things about our planet. Fill us in.
Well, John, good evening to you and the listeners and guests. Let me just start off by saying this way. Just like the polarizing forces of the politics of the day, with repulsive forces that we hear about, we're finding about new evidence that there may be some strange repulsive forces inside the Earth. And in the news, here's the story. The inner core, John, of the Earth may be slowing, and it may have reversed itself in 2009. But let's take a journey with our 2 feet. If we stand on the Earth, we stand on the crust, deeper down the mantle, the outer core and the inner core. That inner core, John, is some 780 miles in diameter and has the temperature of the surface of the sun. So what's going on in this particular story? The outer core of the Earth, for some strange reason, after this inner core reversal, is now maybe changing that protective magnetic field that we need during these high sunspot and radiation incidences. But there's something different going on, too. 2 different stories. You and I talk about this on the Sunday show. There's an Earth's magnetic pole, and then there's a geomagnetic pole. So let's talk briefly about that and maybe answer some of the, controversy. The Earth's magnetic pole is called the dip pole, and it's been wandering, John, some 683 miles since about 1831. So in regular relativistic terms, it's moving 40 miles a year from Canada to Siberia. But if you look at the other pole, that's the one where north and south meet on the map, there's not much going on there. What's causing this magnetic pole to wander? Again, John, inside the Earth at the poles, there thinks there's 2 magnetic blobs of material that are upsetting the balance of the Earth. So many strange things are happening inside the Earth.
Is it affecting the weather? What is it affecting mostly right now?
Well, there could be an increase in earthquake activity, but not to sound an alarmist. We don't know if that also has a direct effect on the climate as we talk about climate change. But here's something that'll really shock everybody. If the Earth, God help us if it did this, stopped rotating for just 1 second, the Earth's rotation, John, at the equator is 1,000 miles an hour. If it stopped, it wouldn't do it, but here's the story. Everything that's not locked down would rapidly take off the ground and shift to the east because the Earth rotates west to east. And more problematic, the water from the equator would rush to the poles, but not to alarm people. basically what we're saying is these changes inside the Earth, they're scarier, maybe no. Maybe the politics of the day is scarier. But we just don't know enough about Mother Earth.
Well, I think the election's going to happen before anything happens to the Earth.
I hope so, John. But hopefully we've explained it in a short amount of time. There's a big difference between the spinning and rotation of the Earth's core going backwards and the changes that are happening with the Earth's magnetic field, because you as a pilot, you know that they constantly then have to update the runways magnetically.
Yes.
And that continues to change from these two big blobs of molten material that are up near the poles. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve Cates, and we'll probably talk to you again on Sunday. And Rich Radabali, make sure we put a copy of that report on the Sun on the website. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are coming back with the great Bill O'Reilly, and there's some real common sense there. And stay tuned. Don't hang up. Stay tuned for Bill O'Reilly. Let's take that break.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby, and joining us now is mega nonfiction best-selling author Bill O'Reilly. Of course, he hosts Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly every weeknight here on WABC Radio at 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Bill, you want to talk about the Democrats and Biden. Take it away.
Well, there are two factions right now in the party. So there's the Joe has to go faction and the Joe has to stay faction. The go faction is led by the most powerful Democrat in the country. That would be former President Barack Obama. And the assessment is that we can't, I'm speaking for the Joe has to go people, we can't risk backing Joe Biden any longer because he's likely to lose, and then we're going to lose the House and the Senate. So the whole thing is going to collapse, and that's the determination. Now, I know that because David Axelrod, the CNN commentator, we mentioned this a little bit last week, but it's been hyped up more, has been going out and saying, look, we think that Biden is the greatest president of all time, but he's too old to do the job anymore, and he has to step aside. When you see Axelrod say something like that, he is usually speaking for Barack Obama. That's how close the two men are. And he wouldn't say it if Barack Obama didn't tell him, hey, this is the way I see it. Axelrod's not a puppet. I don't want to say that. I think he believes what Obama believes. But that's the message that's coming out. Now, the Joe Must Stay crowd is scattered. There's no central authority behind it. Therefore, it is much weaker than the Joe Must Go crowd, which will prevail. Joe will go. But the timetable is all up in the air because Jill Biden has dug it in and said to her husband, look, we're not going to let them chase us out of here. And Joe goes, okay, because Joe does everything Joe tells him to do. We know a lot of husbands like that, and Joe is one of them.
Well, what a mess! What a mess the country is in. If you would give odds that President Biden will be there on November 5th versus not be on, what do you think the odds are?
Well, I'd say 5-1 against. And I've said this for almost a year because I went through this with my mother, and I saw the progression. See, it's not about really what Joe did during the debate or what Joe did with George Stephanopoulos. It's about he can't come back. He's going to years. And everybody knows that. So how can you back somebody with a cognitive decline that is just going to continue to hold him back from doing his job? I mean, the man himself says, well, I got to work fewer hours and take more naps. Okay, well, I think you lead the league in both right now. I mean, right? I mean, we, on Common Sense on WABC, we run the schedule out every day. Rarely does he have anything on a schedule, Joe Biden.
So, Bill.
Now, as Paul Simon once saying, the nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Kamala Harris. Mr. Simon was talking about Joe DiMaggio, but now the nation. And you know the signal. It's a fascinating thing how these political parties work. So the signal is now it's got to be Kamala. We don't want to go in and have a brawl in Chicago in August. We don't want to go in with people throwing mud at each other, trying to convince delegates to vote for them. That's what an open convention is. We don't want to do that because that'll make us look bad, us being the Democratic Party. We want to go in and coalesce behind one person. And Kamala Harris has made it quite clear that she wants to be that one person.
So let me ask you, Bill, how did they finesse that? Because like you're saying, she's making it clear they're trying to prop her up. But then you got, on the other hand, you've got Joe Biden today. You've got the president calling into Morning Joe saying he's not going anywhere. Bring it on. How do you finesse this? What happens?
Well, it's like Nixon. Very similar to what the nation went through during Watergate. Nixon, it went week by week with him. That's the drama of it. Remember the hearings, and they were in there, and everybody's around, and no, Nixon wanted to go do it. And then,
oops, we're losing you, Bill. We're losing you a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
It's
much
like
better now. Yep.
Yeah, like the Nixon situation. And then the tipping point was when Nixon was heard on the audio, we can get the money to shut up the people in the White House behind plumber activity, the cover-up. Okay. Now, there's going to be another tipping point for Joe Biden. There has to be. Something's going to happen that makes him look terrible. And can you imagine the stress on the man? Everything he does now, if he stumbles going up the stairs, if he says something crazy, is magnified and on page 1 on the New York Post. Right? He can't do anything. And Trump's been going through that for the last 8 years. Everything Trump says magnified up and blah, blah, blah. But Biden isn't Trump. He doesn't have that same swagger. Never had it. So the pressure will become unbearable on the president of the United States. And he will have to do what LBJ did in 1968, say, I'm going to hold the job, but I'm not going to run for re-election.
Yeah, the question is sort of the timing of all this, too. Bill, the other thing you brought up about sort of the moments, President Biden is he did the thing with George Stephanopoulos. There were a couple weird things that were said. But then this week is supposed to be this press conference. I just heard this morning the White House is saying it's going to be a solo press conference. It's, after NATO. Will it really be a press conference? I guess is the question. Will there be questions that are fed? The black radio host is saying the African American radio host came out and said that she was fed those questions. So I think a lot rides also on this. Let's see what happens if he really does a full-fledged news conference. If it was Trump, he'd come out and say, hey, I'll ask anything. I'll be here for the next few hours.
Well, he almost has to. Biden does appear with the president of NATO. He almost has to do that. I don't see how they can get around it. And the White House doesn't care about NATO. They care about Ukraine a little bit. They don't care about NATO. So it's all going to be about Biden's cognitive situation. He made it worse with Stephanopoulos two very specific times. Up top, Stephanopoulos goes, "Did you watch the debate?" And Biden goes, he pauses. He goes, "I don't think so." You don't think so?
I know when I saw that. That was stunning.
Right. You either watched it or you didn't. And then Stephanopoulos had to ask him this, will you take an independent cognitive exam? Mm. And Biden basically danced and said, no, I'm not doing it. All Biden had to do was say, yeah, I'll take one, but I want Trump to take one. This is independent, outside of the White House, too, right?
He's not fast enough to do that.
He's exactly right, John. He's not quick enough to do it because that wasn't an answer that was given to him by his staff. Look, at this point, if you're listening to WABC and you're a Democrat and you're a Biden backer, you really have to step back and say, what really am I supporting? What are you supporting? Are you supporting the good of the nation? Yeah, you hate Trump. You think Trump's Hitler. Whatever you hate, what do you think? But this is right before your eyes.
Well,
Kamala Harris.
We have to be respected by the world. Right now, we're not being very respected.
And you know that. You've been abroad, and you know that people overseas are basically very frightened. Look, Hamas never would have done what it did on October 7th if Trump had been in office. Never in a million years would that have happened. All you got to do is read my book, Killing the Killers, to see what Trump did to the jihadists. Hamas never would have done that.
And Soleimani. We have a question from Ed Cox.
So Bill, he's not running. What happens after that, and how do you get to Kamala Harris through the process?
Well, Harris has got a very strong card, and that's the African-American vote. So if you're not respectful to Kamala Harris, the African-American vote is going to turn against you. That means that all of her opponents have, they can't say like I can as an honest commentator, Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. She wasn't hired for her competency or experience or for her vision. She was hired because she checked the box. All right? Biden said, I want a woman of color. Kamala's in the Senate. Here's Kamala. Okay. But since she's been vice president, can any of you guys give me one thing that she's done to help the nation?
I can't give you one thing Biden has done.
She was the border czar, and look what happened at the border.
That's not her fault. She was set up for that. But she has not done one thing.
She'll still get stuck with it, Bill.
Yeah, I know. But I'm a fair man. I don't hold Kamala Harris responsible for the border. That's all on Biden, 100%. But all Kamala Harris has been as vice president is a champion of abortion. That's all she's been. And, she said that we had an alliance with North Korea. I used that soundbite on my program tonight. Didn't correct it. We don't have an alliance with North Korea. We have an alliance with South. She said it in South Korea.
Oh, my God.
And she said we're defending Ukraine to come to the defense of NATO. Well, Ukraine's not in NATO.
Right.
All you got to do, ladies and gentlemen, is just picture this in your mind right now. Here's O'Reilly sitting in a chair. Here's Kamala Harris sitting in a chair. How do you think that's going to go?
Good luck to Kamala.
Bill O'Reilly at 9 o'clock tonight, between 9 and 10 o'clock on WABCRadio.com, BillO'Reilly.com. And we're in 173 countries, 50 states on your iPhone at 77 WABC. And we'll be listening tonight, Bill.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
so
Bill.
much.
Thank you. And guys, what do we all stand for?
Truth, justice,
and the American way.
God bless America.
Hi, it's Lou Dobbs for Priority Gold, America's precious metals dealer. These are volatile times with high inflation, soaring debt, wars on multiple continents, and rising financial stress. Central banks are buying gold to diversify their reserves, so are many Americans. Call Priority Gold and find out how precious metals can help you diversify your portfolio. They're highly rated and happy to help. Call 1-866-303-6357 or get a free gold guide at PriorityGoldGuide.com. That's PriorityGoldGuide.com.